Let's make sure this is working. I think it is. Go ahead and drop a comment. If you can't hear me, I hope the audio is good. I checked everything. My microphone's on. So, I was messaging with a friend of mine earlier and telling her about how I'm creating my podcast. And she says, well, why don't you just do a live if that's easier? And I was like, oh, yeah, maybe I could just do a live about this. You guys, I was looking on my page and I have not been live in it's been over a year. Last time I was live was January of last year. So I hope the audio and everything is good. Let me see if I can get back onto my phone again. Okay. It shows that I'm live. Okay, perfect. It's working. So I wanted to jump on today, Friday, for a little bit and talk to you guys about something that I have been working with for a while now. I created it sometime last year, and I started using it because I was doing a, not really a lot of the mainstream manifestation techniques, but some of them, I was never really a person that could get into affirmations because I wasn't good at convincing myself of something that I didn't really believe. And that's how this really started coming up for me because I was like, okay, wait a minute. Like, I want a different way to work with energy, and I really wanted to understand, like, how was I actually creating? And I always have had this really strong draw to what I would call the unseen realm, right? Like, where does what we create come from? And how am I actually doing this? So, like, getting into affirmations, I mean, I'm not saying that positive self talk isn't important because, yes, it's important, right? And what I was really interested in, and where this obsession of mine, started, was okay, well, the unseen realm, like, where does this come from? Like, how are we really creating and manifesting? And, the more I looked at it, most manifestation teachings focused only on the mindset or action. And, that's true, but true creation for me seemed like it really happened at this intersection point. So, and the point is what I talk about as time, memory, and form. And time being that it's what we're all in, right? We're all in this form of time, and it's obviously, talked about, and we know that time is the thing that we don't get back, right? And so it's this precious commodity, like, to us. And it ends up being very important and known to us. And even in my personal life, when I was working full time in my professional career, it was like I was always rushing. I always felt like I didn't have enough time. And this is all too familiar of a story, right? Um, that feeling of like time is running out, the feeling of there's only so much time in a day. We'll say, like, even right now in this in very interesting political environment that we're in, um, everyone is running around in time as if it is controlling them, and everyone's like getting caught up, in all of this drama that's out there. And what I realize the most is that time's not linear, right? Even with these times that we're in right now, there's so much that is shifting and changing in this realm of the unseen. Um, and we actually have more power and control of it than what we realize. We do not have to feel like time is running out. We don't have to feel like we don't have any control over our time or that it gets the best of us. And that for me, I started really delving into this area of my time being a rhythm. And it's where my name came from, Rhythmic Being, my new website. Um, and really working with time to essentially have time like working in my favor, right? And it's a completely different perspective. And that's basically why I wanted to get on and talk about this live today, to really dive in and give you something that will completely shift, how you see manifestation and creation. And, I bring up, like the politics that are going on out there, or, your day to day life, because time is the thing we don't get out of until we die. And it's what we're experiencing every day. But to learn how to work with it, right? In like a very different way. So, where I see what I would call like a pure or a really intentional way of manifesting is utilizing time, memory, and form in this fashion. And this is what I started doing for myself last year. And I absolutely love it because it has transformed my perception on time. And I have been able to really shift and transform patterns, internal patterns in programming that I had going on that I started to become aware of. And, mainstream manifestation techniques just weren't working for me. And so the more I started looking at it, it's like for me, time has always been, I guess, kind of irrelevant. Like I was very aware of the linear fashion of time that we function in society. But for me, it's like in my at home life, I'm going through my day as a rhythm. I'm not, looking at the clock trying to get everything done and, living my life like a rat race at home. And for me, it's a lot more flow. And the more I got into this natural rhythm and beyond that, and looking at time beyond a linear fashion and as a rhythm itself, it actually holds space for the energy to take form. And so that is a completely different perspective on time. It is the space for energy to take form. And even when you think about it, it's like how often, if you're like burnt out or stressed or feeling overwhelmed, right? Like overwhelmed, maybe you're online in this political atmosphere that's happening and um you feel super overwhelmed and you say, "Oh, I just need space," or "I just need time alone," or something like that, right? Time from a non-linear standpoint is a rhythm and it holds space for energy to take form. So, it also is where misalignment happens, like when we resist time, right? Like when we spend time feeling bad or we're impatient, you know, or we're forcing outcomes. Those things are like never favorable. They end up they don't make us feel good. Um, yeah. So, and when you think about it, it's like you look at like a flower, right? A flower doesn't rush to bloom. It follows a natural cycle. And so if we start to see time in this fashion, like everything is following a natural cycle. And that alone is very freeing, right? And then when you move on from time, even to something like memory, it's like memory's more than just the past. It's actually the coding that shapes your reality, right? And you can have memories that make you feel good. You can have memories that make you feel bad. And those are really important to be aware of because, those memories are a subconscious programming that exists in you. Just want to make sure this is on. Okay, the light's on. Um, and so the memory is actually the soul's creative intelligence. And even just looking at your memory like that it's something that you can actually work with. And the memories that have formed are something that you can actually work with to improve your body, improve your mind. I worked with this a lot back in, well, not time memory form, but was becoming, really aware of my memories in 2022 when I got sick, whenever things were happening in 2022. And I was really struggling with my memory and to remember things, or, my recall was affected. And so memory in 2022 really stood out to me. And became very apparent how you can have different experiences and the memories of those experiences really affect you, right? And so I wanted, and listen, this is really what it comes down to for me. I want stuff to be working in my favor, right? I want time working in my favor. I want to make the most of it. I want to feel good doing things in my memory. I want my memory working in my favor. I don't want to not feel well and feel like my memory is affected. I'm always coming from the place of, self responsibility, self care, taking care of myself, and really making the most out of everything. So, when it comes to memory, the soul's creative intelligence, memory is more than just the past. It's this coding that shapes your reality. So, when you're having experiences, it's really important that when you're having that experience, you're storing like really good memories for yourself. You're accessing from that place. And the subconscious memory, it either expands you or it limits you when it comes to creating. And that's really important, right? Like when you think about it, your memory is expanding you or it's limiting you. That's a really big deal. It's a really big deal. And here, just a minute. Okay, there. And with that being said, it's like if deep down you hold memories of struggle, no matter manifestation happens in the body, yes, on memory. It really, really does. And that's what I'm getting into right now. Like, as an example, if deep down you hold a memory of struggle, no matter how much you effort, no matter how much you put in, right, the struggle keeps appearing. Like, this isn't by accident. It was like when I was talking about not being well or being sick in 2022, and it really affected my memory. And I was really struggling, right? My body was feeling terrible. It's so easy to like go into those feelings and start feeling really bad for yourself. And I was feeling really bad and I was doing that. And I caught myself doing that. And that's been a whole process that I've utilized. This way of creating. I've applied it to help myself over these last couple of years, and it's really, really changed things for me. And so getting to the third aspect, the form, it's the embodied manifestation, right? So form is where energy meets the physical world. It's how you live, how you move, and embody what you actually create. So when you see it now as manifestation being this, essentially this intersection of these three key forces, time, memory, and form, like for me, it makes so much sense. And I'm like, and it's such an easy way of looking at it and really experiencing, yourself as a creator, manifesting, creating. So your body, your actions, your surroundings all reflect your inner time and memory alignment. So, for an example, someone who knows they're successful moves, speaks, and acts differently than someone still hoping to be successful. Big difference. So, I'm wondering, which of these three, and I created a poll, hopefully it shows up. But I created a poll, like which of these three, time, memory, or form, do you feel most connected to? Like, I hope people comment back and let me know. Trying to keep myself following along here on my notes so I don't get distracted. But I'm curious, like, does one of them, speak to you more than the other? So when you start working with this framework, basically like the time, memory, and form, and it's working for you. So you start working with it and instead of against it. So instead of working against time, you're working with time, creating your own rhythm. Instead of working or your memory working against you, like what I talked about in 2022, it was working against me. You start working with memory. And so, like, an example of that for me was when I was feeling bad, I was on purpose. I wasn't denying that. I was acknowledging that, right? Like, I did not feel good, was not going great. But I on purpose started remembering times where I did feel good, where I felt better. I reminded myself that, nothing lasts forever. I'm not going to be here forever. And I started being intentional in those moments. So having these things working for you and not against you. So you no longer feel behind because you're going to trust in the timing of your life, right? You rewrite your story and release subconscious blocks. So those inner stories, the things that you tell yourself, where mainstream manifestation talks about, speaking things into existence and stuff like that, uh, it becomes an interesting place. I feel like this is, a more clearer way to start because we really want to get in there and understand, like, okay, like I just tell myself that I feel good when I don't feel good. What is this really about? We need more depth to it. So rewrite the story and release the subconscious blocks. So you're essentially then embodying the version of you that already exists in the unseen realm that I spoke about. Because time and memory are the places where it's happening before it comes into form. So, I mean, and who's had a moment where things just clicked effortlessly? I know I have, right? And then I was really questioning myself about how damn hard I had been working at doing so many things. But I'm like, oh my God, this was so easy, right? That moment where it just was like it clicked. It was effortless. Oh, it was like a breath of fresh air, yeah? So how can we actually like apply this? So I've talked about, the concept, and I've talked a little bit about how I've utilized it. And here's how you can start using it in your life, like day to day, right? Because the day to day is where it happens. So, three takeaways from this little live that you can use. Step number one, okay? Work with time, not against it. Work with time, not against it. So identify, are you in a season? If we look at the garden scenario, I garden. It's winter right now. So when springtime comes, we'll be planting. So are you in a season of planting, growing, or harvesting? This is a really great way to work with rhythms and how this is a rhythm. So season right now, it's wintertime. We're in rest, or we're maybe inside more. We're doing things differently. So working with the time of that, like not being upset that it's winter and can't just like sit outside in the sunshine every single day, and we're not enjoying winter because it's cold and dark, and even though it's sunny right now, it has not been this way where I'm at. And we're not working in the time that we have right now in these winter months where, we have so much more time to get other things done because it's cold out and we're not really outside as much. So, working with time and not against it instead of forcing. We're not going to force, we're going to actually align our actions with the natural cycle we're in, just like what I was talking about. And that's what we do. Just align with this winter cycle, and we go through it. And before we know it, spring will be here and we will be getting the gardens going. And this is how you really have time in your favor, right? It's, I don't really talk about patience a lot because I just don't talk to myself like that. Like, I don't tell myself, oh, just be patient. Like, I really just don't. Sometimes I like to go faster. Sometimes I like to go slower. I just gauge my speed, right? And know myself. And, and flowing in this rhythm, time is that for me. I don't have to sit around and be patient. Like, I truly have like a knowing inside that everything is working out um, as it's supposed to. So, okay, step number two, reprogram your memory for expansion. Right before I was talking about memory can either expand you or limit you. You really do want to reprogram your memory for expansion. So, for an example, what you can do is just write down the stories or subconscious beliefs that are shaping your reality. Um, and just start, right there. And if you're not sure, then write down, I'm not sure. Really, I mean, that's like some deeper work to get into there. Um, but yeah, you can start there, writing down or becoming aware of. And if you're not sure, like I said, say, okay, well, what could it be? What are the stories? Really just like look at the stories that you tell, the stories that you tell yourself. And it's really is like how you're shaping it all, right? So a daily practice could be choose one like belief and repeat it to yourself in the morning, but something that you'll actually believe, right? Like, don't go so far beyond that you can't even like embody that. You can't even take that in and action that out in your life because it's just too big of a stretch. So you're getting into the forcing it and trying to convince yourself, and that's not what we want to do at all. So something that's closer to home. So whatever that could be for you, just choose one. And then number 3. So, step number 3, embody the form of your future self. So, start to really move and speak and take action from the frequency of the version of you that already has what you desire. So, this is where you really are allowing yourself to just dream and visualize this for yourself. And it's not going to be anything that you try and make yourself do. You can just allow it to naturally rise up in you and be fun. And the challenge then becomes just for the next like 24 hours, act as if your desired reality is already here. it's it becomes really interesting. You'll find out real quick. It's like where you are limiting yourself, you know, when you really start feeling that and practicing that. So those 3 things. So work with time, not against it. Reprogram your memory for expansion and embody the form of your future self. So I would really like to know, like, which of these 3 steps do you feel most called to apply first? So, like, let me know in the comments. You know, working with time, not against time, like what comes up for you when you hear that. Reprogram your memory for expansion. You know, maybe you start getting into those memories and you're like, yeah, but you don't know what he did to me. Or it was all his fault. Or she. I mean, hey, what did she do? You know, so the stories will come up. All of this, all of this is the work. You know, it's where the real magic happens. You see how you're doing it. It gets really fun. It really does. Just let it be fun. Um, so if this resonates with you, uh, I would really like to know. You know, I'm just looking over all my notes here. I want to make sure I went over everything in this. What are we at? We're at 27 minutes already. Gee, I'm so good at rambling on. This is why I have to create notes for myself to keep myself on track. Truly, I could just be on here going on for like an hour. So yeah, so let me know. If this resonates, let me know. If you feel like, hey, this would really help somebody I know, feel free to share it. Reach out to me. This framework, time memory form, is within a system that I have created called Prime Sequence. So, Prime Sequence is creating this, it's a beyond a natural rhythm sequence that is like your optimal way of functioning. Is how I've created this. It's what I did for myself once I stepped out of an exhausting career, truly exhausting career, and I sat back having to like restore my natural rhythms because they were shot, they were gone because of, you know, the career that I had worked for as long as I had worked it. And then once I really gave myself a lot of space and time to restore natural rhythms, I went to the space beyond that, and that's where rhythmic being formed. And within all of that, I said there has to be this sequence that I can function from that really allows me to have like this like great life because I did not feel close to having that. And that's where Prime Sequence was born. And so I utilized this creating a method, technology, framework, whatever we want to call it, within that to further help myself. So I look forward to hearing all of you guys. It was nice being live here today, and I'll make it a point to not let another year go by before I do this again. Bye, you guys.